Character creation is by far one of the most enjoyable parts of tabletop role-playing. Whether it's Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, or a weird indie one-pager you found on Itch.io, creating a new hero you can take with you on a valiant adventure is something you could spend hours doing. I'm going to attempt to do just that in however long this video ends up being. Hello, my name is Ethan Cat, and this is Ethan's Magic Emporium, which I guess is just the blanket title for anything vaguely Dungeons & Dragons I end up making, and today I will be creating a randomly generated adventurer using this, the world's greatest storytelling tool. Before me, I have a big old list of every race, class, and subclass from the hit tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons, which is an insane sentence to say outside of the context of tabletop role-playing. I will be randomly rolling for all these three attributes, and that's all I will have to base this character off of. Here is a closer look at the die to prove that A, I'm not bluffing, and B, it's just a cool math rock. Yeah, look at that. And without further ado, here we go. 11. Wait, what the fuck does that actually mean? Let me check. So for this character's race, I have rolled Aasimar, which for the uninitiated are just angel people. Whether descended from a celestial being or infused with heavenly power, Aasimar are mortals who carry a spark of the upper planes within their souls. They can fan that spark to bring light, ease wounds, or unleash the fury of the heavens. An easy way to think about it is just that they're the opposite of tieflings, I guess. And now I am rolling for class 13. Fuck is this spreadsheet? And so for this character's class, I have rolled the Sorcerer, like a wizard without all the book learning or the irreparable brand damage. I've only ever played a Sorcerer once in my life for like a 2-session mini campaign, but they're a lot of fun. Twinned spell fucking slaps. And now here we go for the subclass. We are getting 9. That's the fucking Wild Magic Sorcerer, baby. If you're new to Dungeons & Dragons and don't quite understand the chaotic nature of the Wild Magic Sorcerer, let me explain. Wild Magic Sorcerers traditionally have some connection to the Feywild, or the Plane of Fairy, or the realm of pure magic and chaos. Anytime they cast a spell of first level or higher, which as a sorcerer is something you do a lot, you have to roll a d20. If you roll a natural 1 on that d20, you get a Wild Magic Surge. Now alongside this class, you get the Wild Magic Surge table, which is essentially a D100 list of like, I don't know, fucking 50 or so effects that can randomly happen based on the roll of your D100. Now keep in mind, this is a subclass that you get as a level 1 sorcerer. And here's some of the effects that a Wild Magic Surge can accomplish. You regain 2d10 hit points. This is important to remember that a level 1 sorcerer only has about 8 at max. If you roll a 47 to 48, a unicorn appears. Also, if you roll a 65 to 66, up to 3 creatures you choose within 30 feet of you take 4d10 lightning damage. Again, this is an effect that can occur at level 1, where you only have like 8 hit points. That is a maximum of 40 damage. Anyway, long story short, they're wild, they're chaotic, they're infamous in Dungeons & Dragons for a fucking reason. Okay, so now I have to draw an Aasimar Wild Magic Sorcerer. I don't know why I said Wild Magic Sorcerer. That combined 2 of the 3 things that I needed to focus on, and the list didn't really seem that impressive as a result. Anyway, Aasimar, Wild Magic Sorcerer. Let's go. Where the fuck's my pen? Now, whenever I start a new drawing, I usually start with a little bit of a thumbnail sketch, just to sort of pose out where everything is, get the rough sort of energy I want for the character, you know, things like that. As a matter of principle, I never really record or stream this process, just to keep that sort of pressure off, you know? It's very fast, it's very loose, I'll scribble things down, quickly erase them, and like, you don't want people looking over your shoulder while you do that. Another thing that I tend to do, which I know is also a little bit weird, is I normally start drawing from the eyes first. For me and my particular style, I feel as though that really like, you know, grounds everything in the face. I know roughly where everything is, where everything needs to be, it's just a good starting point for me. The eyes also convey a lot of emotion from the get-go, which is a very good thing to have right off the bat. These brows are a little bit too sinister and mean for my liking, but it's good to know that now rather than later. Now in terms of hair, Wild Magic Sorcerers are often very chaotic, all over the place, so I want to go for something a little bit disheveled and disorganized. A real scrappy looking sorceress. Just gonna block out the points of the hair. Now, in a lot of the reference images I've seen for the Aasimar race, they have very human-like features. Their faces are very human, they've got human ears, so I think I'm going to have to come up with some sort of solution to make them seem more angelic and not just a person with blue skin, maybe. This is actually intolerable to do if I'm not listening to music, so I'm gonna fucking multitask. Now, much like wizards, sorcerers cast their spells using an arcane focus, which, you know, can be anything from a wand to a staff to an orb. For this, I think I might want to lean into the more, like, angelic aspects of the Aasimar race. You know, maybe do something like a halo or a, you know, ring. And what I'm also thinking of doing is making half of the ring like a, you know, like an Olympian's wreath, you know, to get that element of nature and wild magic in there. Actually, now that I'm doing this, I am thinking about, like, that sort of, you know, Olympian motif. You know, like a lot of the gods from, like, Hades, or I guess they're the gods from Greece, technically, but, you know, they had a lot of, like, more very naturalistic attributes about them. They had, like, plant life and reefs and things like that, so maybe that's an element that I can lean into to really get that connection between, you know, the angelic and the divine and the natural and plant stuff. Although maybe I shouldn't lean too much into that, because then I might be getting into, like, druid territory. Always the hands. The hands are always a problem. If you see me taking like 20 tries to get a pair of hands right, it's part of the process, don't worry about it. Okay, so now I'm thinking that to really sort of amp up the more like angelic notions of the character, like why not a halo? If there's any one element of character design that screams angel, then it's gotta be a fucking magic ring sticking over your head. And that does mean she has 2 rings on her person, but like, you can never have too many rings. Just ask Sonic the Hedgehog. In terms of the outfit, you know, sorcerers don't have any proficiency in, you know, any kind of armor or anything, so it's gonna have to be, you know, very sort of like standard clothes. I'm gonna make it like a little bit loose fitting and a little bit tattered to get more of those like chaotic Feywild elements in there. Ah, put a little gap tooth in the smile, that's cute. When in doubt, just slap some belts across everything. That's what Final Fantasy did, and it works for me. Now for her skirt, I'm sort of thinking of this style of like, I can't quite put my finger on what the style is, so I'm just gonna put up this image of the main character from Immortals Phoenix Rising, a game that nobody plays and even less people remember. That's what I'm going for. Again, sort of leaning into that more, you know, Greco-Olympian aesthetic. Now, however long this video ends up being, just know that I've cut out, like, you know, a good 20 to 30 minutes of me trying to get, you know, the billow of the skirt right. Cloth physics is hard, and it's even harder when you slap a bunch of belts on things. Now, as a general matter of principle, I don't really spend a lot of time drawing shoes or boots, so I'm just gonna very quickly slap something down here. I'm kind of attempting to draw Hermes boots from Hades, like just running purely on memory, you know, giving them the little wings on the side, and he wore fucking sandals, didn't he? Oh well. Yeah, give her a little fang tooth, give her a little snaggle tooth. It's all the rage. I'm already thinking for her legs. I know she's not going to wear much in the way of armor, but I'm thinking one way that I could lean into that more, like, you know, Feywild chaotic element is to just cover them in tattoos. And not like nicely organized, like, you know, here's a bunch of tattoos that tell a story sort of thing, but just individual, completely separate from each other, just tattoos you would get on a random night out that are stuck with you forever. As a wild magic sorcerer, they're chaotic, they're impulsive, and every chaotic and impulsive person I know is covered in tattoos. So for her tattoos, I'm basically just gonna draw, like, a bunch of DnD symbols from memory. Like, I think the leaf and the acorn is like the symbol of Sylvanus, the god of wild nature. I played a Silver Knight once. I have oddly specific knowledge. I also know a bunch of the, like, planes of the multiverse have different symbols associated with them. I, like, have vague images of them in my head, so I'm just going to try and draw them from memory. This one's from the Beastlands, I think. I remember there's one that's just like a square with a line through it. I hope that's from the Upper Planes. Well, she can have some lower plane tattoos. Like, that's fine. She's fucking crazy. There's one that's just like a sun. I think that might be, like, you know, Elysium or something. The square with a squiggly line through it, I think. Is that Pandemonium or Limbo? I can never remember. That one's a Band-Aid. She skinned her knee. Also, this is more of a thing for me. Anytime I need to draw a character, like, with tattoos, but I don't really care what the tattoos are, I'll just cover them in, like, rose thorns. This has been a little bit of an inside joke with me that goes back to, like, an old webcomic that I used to make called An Exercise in Futility. Well, yeah, anytime I had to draw, like, fucking muscles or a big arm, I would make sure there's at least one tattoo of a rose thorn on there, just you know. And then this one down here is a very sneaky. That's just the prime material plane with the Feywild and the Shadowfell on it. I remember that one because it looks vaguely like a hamburger. Not really a symbol, but you know, I'm gonna lean into the angelic thing a little bit more. She's getting some wings. It also builds out her silhouette a little bit more, which, you know, I always think is nice. You know what? For an extra punk aesthetic, you know, I'm gonna fucking pierce her halo. Why not? I don't know why, but I always come back to, like, piercing weird things on the characters that I draw. Like, you know, having a tiefling with a pierced tail, a satyr with a pierced horn. I don't know what it is. I don't have, like... I'm not for or against piercings in any way in my actual life. In real life. I don't know. They just add flavor and character. I don't know what you want from me. I think that sketch is pretty much done. Now we can move on to the actual fun stuff. Anybody who says inking is their least favorite part of drawing is a coward and a fool. I fucking love it. The inking process is usually a lot of me zooming really far into a drawing so you can't really see what's going on. So, actually, you know what? Just to save time, here's a time lapse for the inking process. Look at that, the inking process is done. One thing to note, I did draw her tattoos on a separate layer entirely, so I could just put the opacity down a little bit, so that'll conform to her skin color, whatever it ends up being. Speaking of which, I have to make a choice on that. I think Aasimar usually have, like, non-human skin tones, so I think I'm gonna go with a light green to keep the, you know, naturalistic attributes of the wild magic sorcerer relevant. I'll also make the background transparent because I think her hair is going to be white. And I just want to make sure I get that all colored in. Angels, white hair, it works. I saw a lot of Aasimar drawings have, like, you know, hollow or colored eyes, and I don't think I want to give her hollow eyes, so I think I might just add a little bit of a blue tinge on there, just to, you know, make her seem a little less human, but still a little human at the same time. Human after all. Gold, gold, gold. When I got the flat colors down, usually what I then do next is go over any lines that I want to color as well. Because sometimes it just really adds a little bit of, like, a, you know, a bit of pop when the lines are different from the rest of the lines. I'm drawing and talking, don't judge me. So for a lot of her more angelic features, I think I'm going to cover them in, like, a nice blue glow. And if I really want to accentuate that glow, I might put a little bit of a, you know, a bit of a dark blur behind them to really sort of lift them up from whatever the backdrop ends up being. But because the inside is mostly bright white and the lines are also a very light blue, this sort of backdrop darker blue really makes them sort of pop and stand out more. Now I think for her what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap down some very light shadows using a linear burn layer, just so I can really start to get a little bit of an idea of the 3D-ness of her form. That's not a sentence. Basically, I'm putting a little bit of a shadowy overlay on certain parts of the drawing, just to, you know, add a bit of depth, differentiate sort of layers of her, like her arm going over her face and things like that, and, you know, just flush her out a little more. Add a bit of depth on her belts. So now what I'm going to do, now that I've sort of blocked out those rough shadows, is I'm going to go, you know, component by component, add a bit of a darker color on another layer, and progressively erase that to get a bit of a more painterly 3D shift in tone. And because I'm using the kneaded eraser tool, which is like a textured eraser tool, there's a slight bit of texture that's left behind, which, you know, you're not really going to notice unless you're looking really deep into the drawing, but I know it's there. And that's what's important to me. I'm thinking the white of her outfit is a little bit like, what do you call it? It's a little bit too crisp, it's a little bit too uniform, it's not quite chaotic enough. Like, it's really leaning into that more, like, angelic Aasimar side of things, but I think I want to go a little bit more, like, a little bit more chaotic, a little bit more quirky. I'm actually going to use the Bloodstain tool to just add a whole bunch of splatters of color over her outfit. I still want to keep it very light, just so it goes with the sort of paleness of the rest of her body and the lighter blues that she's adorned with. But I think even that adds a sort of element of wildness to her, that it adds a little bit more chaos and stuff that really leans into that more like wild magic sorceress vibe. Instead of putting a drop shadow down, I'm just going to splash down some like natural greens. Sort of does the same thing, gives her a base. Although now that I've made her outfit a little bit more colorful, I think I can also do the same thing to her glowing elements as well. If I lock the transparent pixels on the colored lines, I can just quickly go over them and create a little bit of a color gradient. That way it adds a bit more color. You know, it's chaotic, it's more wild, it's Oh, the glow is still blue. I'll also just very quickly add a bit of a glow layer across one side of her body to increase that tone. Like, I've done the shadows, but it's also probably good to add some highlights as well. Now that we've got the textured base in the background, I think we're almost done, but I think there's just one more thing I can do here. So I'm actually going to use the polyline tool to create some very, like, regimented square selections. Then I'm going to fill those with white, and then progressively erase them to sort of get these very structured beams of light. I'm almost done, I can feel it. And that is... boom! Signed. Done. So there you have it, the Aasimar Wild Magic Sorceress. A brand new character that I designed in exactly the length of this video, and not 3 hours and 15 minutes. You know, all jokes aside, that was really fucking fun. That's like a great way to, like, break off the creative rust and, you know, really sort of hammer down into a drawing. Like, I have everything I need. Race, class, subclass. A background might have been good for some extra character work, but you know what? Maybe I can do that next time. So if you want to see me do this for another class in particular, let me know about it in the comments below. And if you want to see some other Dungeons & Dragons adjacent videos that I've made, I've got a whole suite of homebrew that I've made and created videos for over here and on my itch.io that you can download for free. It's not a scam. I promise. Like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. It comes up with a recommended donation, but you can literally just press no thanks, just take me to the download. Like, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. So anyway, as always, my name's Ethan Cat. This has been Ethan's Magic Emporium. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on social media, and... yeah.